something I hope we finally get in Lowell, or will have later, are good educational programs for all the people who want to know about Jack and want to know the tree it was outside tonight. I thought it's a perfect night to talk about the ghosts. And this comes from his last book, the book he was writing working on shortly before he died. It's called Pick. It's about a young black boy, Pictorial Review Jackson, who's 10 years old and whose brother and he go on the road together. And his brother is a jazz musician who comes back from the big city to get Pick, little Pick, and take him away and end up with him in California. In this section, as far as I'm concerned, there are 4 Jack Kerouacs in this. If you're familiar with the town and the city, you know that he broke himself up into different parts, or put different parts of himself into characters in the town and the city. There were, I think it was 5 Martin brothers in that book, and Kerouac took parts of himself and friends and put them into all of those. In this, you have, it's an allegory of the life of Jack Kerouac. And you have 2 old men in it, the ghostly figures, which to me reflect parts of Kerouac, and you have the young boy, which I think also contains Kerouac, and you have his brother, which I think contains Kerouac. I'll read some of this. Some of the Ghost of the Susquehanna was in On the Road, but the whole thing appears in Pick. And it's with a dialect that has some kind of a southern or a southern black dialect in it. And of course, it's a young boy talking, and the young boy is addressing, talking to his dead grandfather. It was 8 o'clock when we went and stood in front of the Lincoln Tunnel in all that yaller light. And it started misting just a little, enough to worry me and Slim, it's his brother, even before we was begun on the road. But for the first time since that time, we got a ride inside a minute. It seemed like the man at the wheel came around the corner saying, "Pleased to meet you," before we could even show our thumbs. He lit up with a smile and throwed open the door. It was a big, gigantic, yeller truck that said Pensco on it, with a tractor cab in front a good 12 feet high and the biggest tires in the world, and hauled a trailer you couldn't see over up without backing up across the street. A mighty gigantic thing that Slim had to throw me up to get in, and the man touched me like a football. When I sat up there, it felt like being in a tree. It was so grand and high. Slim jumped after and hauled in that suitcase that had all our clothes, and here we go. "Going someplace with your kid brother?" the driver said. "It don't do for him to get caught in the rain." And with that, he kicked down and grabbed 2 clutches and socked everything around and pumped his feet like an organ player, and boom, that truck started to roll and growl and bowl down into the tunnel like a mountain. It was a white man driving it. His name was Norridus, and he made the tunnel shake and reverberate from there to New Jersey. Not only that, he didn't say another word till we got to Pennsylvania hours later. And all Slim and me had to do was sit and enjoy the way he throwed that gigantic machine down the highway. He was ever so much stronger than a poor bus, and that is a heap of strength. People in the other cars seemed to quake and wobble when we came by, spit boom eating up everything in sight. Only time he stopped was on a hill, and only stopped passing people then, didn't stop rolling at all. He had the mightiest brakes in the world to stop that trailer bumping us down the back of every red light, and had to kick for his life on the brakes. They handled such powerful stops and was so supple. Then the trailer bucked to a stop like a mule and edged along like it couldn't wait too long at no red light, and the driver told it to hold fast, but it edged along no lesser. "She's got to go," he said. As the first man comes. Well, the mist was raining in New Jersey, and Grandpa, the first thing Slim and I seen was that old white man with the silver hair flowing around his head, walking along in the highway in all that yeller light, with the rain blowing over him like the smoke. Oh, he looked pitiful and grand all at the same time for an old man. Slim said he got a poor short ride from New York. We looked at him when we boomed by and seen his face stuck out in the rain, and him deep in thought of something like it never rained and like he wasn't anywhere but in his room, you know. "What's he going to do?" Slim said. Oh, that wonderful gentleman. He puts me in mind of Jesus, tracking along like that in this dismal world. I bet he don't pay no taxes neither, and his toothbrush was lost in Hoover's army. He said everybody's bound to make it at the same time if he ever makes it. The old man had the bluest eyes. Bluest eyes. I seen that when we rolled by. Seen him later. Tell you when someday. We rolled through all the crowded streets of New Jersey and got on the road and come to a sign that said south with an arrow pointing flat to the left, and west with an arrow pointing straight down, and stayed right on the straight arrow down into the west. It got dark and country-like, and pretty soon there was hills. It took some hours to get to Pennsylvania, where the man was driving to, and about 5 to get to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, where he lived. I slept some of the way. It kept right on raining. Inside the cab was warm and comfortable, and a good start it was for me and Slim. He said he wasn't far behind Sheila, after all. At Harrisburg at midnight, the man said he could have saved time by dropping us off outside town at a junction, and pointed to it when we passed. And it was a lonely, rainy junction that made me gulp. It was so dark. But he said he would take us in anyhow to make sure we connected right for Pittsburgh and points west. And added he'd knowed another shortcut downtown. That was good for us, that shortcut. Harrisburg was all lit up in halos in the rain and looked quiet and gloomy. There was big gray bridges and the Susquehanna River below them, and the main street in town where everybody was waiting for buses at midnight. Me and Slim jumped out of the tractor cab at the red light, and the man repeated his instructions over. Well, Slim thanked him gladly, and then back we was on foot, going slant across town for the other highway with hopes on high. That was a good ride, Slim said, and I wouldn't have got one like it alone. Everybody will sympathize with you, being so little, and we'll make time to the coast. Pick, you're my good luck child. Come along with me, you old daddy-o. The houses in Harrisburg is extremely old and come from the time of George Washington, Slim said. They're all old brick in one part of town and have crooked chimblies and ancient shapes, but look all neat. Slim said the town was so old because it was on a great old river. Ain't you ever heard of the Susquehanna and Daniel Boone and Benjamin Franklin and the French and Indian Wars? In those times everybody was here and come from New York where we was, with push carts and oxes over the hills that truck groaned on in rain and high weather and suffered and died just to reach it here. It was the beginning of the big long push to California, and now we remember how long it took us to get here by truck, then figure it by ox. And then tell me about it when we get to San Francisco, about the ox. I'll ask you about it when we go over the sink in Nevada. In Nevada, there's a sink that took down a whole ocean, and it's been dry ever since, and takes a month to measure the edges of it. Ain't nobody washed their teeth over that sink. You ain't seen nothing yet, boy. Well, we were still in Susquehanna and hungry enough to be in Nevada, so Slim said we'd have hot dog number 2 and hot dog number 3 and maybe 4. We went to a diner and ate them and had a side dish of beans with ketchup and coffee, both of us. Slim said I had to learn to drink coffee to keep warm on the road. He counted his money, said we had $46.80 left, and dug down into the suitcase to put on more clothes in case it rained bigger. He said he hoped we got a ride soon so as I could sleep, and wished I could wake up in Pittsburgh, and then we'd move right on instead of sleeping. Up ahead, the sun is shining in Illinois and Missouri, I know it, he said. By and by, we hit the night again, and Slim brought along 2 packs of cigarettes and left us $46.40, and we walked to the outskirts of town. Folks looked at us curious and wondered what we was doing. Well, that's life. A man's got to live and get there, Slim always said about that. Life is a sneeze, life is a breeze, he said. Along come a car with a man going home from work, and Slim didn't care. He threw out his thumb and whistled most shrill through his teeth, and when he seen the man wouldn't stop, why, he stuck his leg and pulled up the pants and said, "Have pity on a poor young girl of the road." Tickled me the way he fooled around everywhere he went. It was cold and it was raw, but we felt real fine, just like we was home. Every now and then I got to worrying about finding a bed and home in California, and worried about Sheila, and worried about getting tireder than I was, and damper in a darker place than this. But Slim made me forget it, the way he went along. It's the only way to live, Slim said. Just don't die. Whoopee! Sometimes I feel like dying, but now I wants to wait the longest time. Being that you bring it in some more, Lord, I ain't afraid of a few cold toes, so long as my whole foot don't crack.